Today, we're going to be going over the accounting exports for the retail software. This includes Director and POS. And first and foremost, I'd like to direct everyone to our website. It is goftx.com. Choose the Lifeline hyperlink. Scroll down to the documentation area for FasTrax POS. We'll choose the documentation tab. And we're going to choose Director. And we're going to go down to the accounting exports. And this is kind of a quick at-a-glance doc of what all we're going to be covering today. It's a good reference to where the account codes go. Because first and foremost, when it comes to your accounting exports, you have to have account codes in a software. The reason for that is, say you're using QuickBooks. You have your classes, you have your their version of departments. That isn't a one-to-one mapping from FasTracks to QuickBooks or that accounting software. You have to assign the account codes to tell Director, FasTracks, what goes where. So whenever you're importing that file, it imports correctly. It's a document that covers the basics. So let's jump in. So setting your account codes up. First and foremost, most of those are going to be set up in the maintenance module. So after opening Director, we're going to go to the maintenance module. And we have to assign an account code to the store or stores. So we'll choose the Stores tab. We're going to choose a store, and you have an account code here. That's the field you have to input. Now, each store, if you have multiple stores, is going to have an account code for each store to identify what is what. What class are you importing into QuickBooks? So make sure you input your account code and choose Save. Next will be the Departments area. So we're going to choose the Departments tab, and we're going to choose a department. And there's three fields here: your inventory code, your cost of goods sold code, and your accounts payable code. You want to fill in the account code for each one of those. And then, of course, do that for every single department, because I'd imagine that each department has its own accounting code. So like I've got one for my premium pack department here, and then I've also got one for my premium cigars. I did a couple test sales just to show what the export would look like. So we can see that there's account codes here. The next thing that will have to have an account code is going to be your tender, your forms of payment. So every tender has a field, the account code. Just input that account code there. One thing I've also seen is if you don't plan on using certain tenders, don't delete the tenders. You can't use it unless you have a button on the register. So make sure that every tender has, an account code and is sent down to the stores. I've seen a couple scenarios just from personal experience where we had some people that just want to have a credit card tender and not have it Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. And they deleted the Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and just had a credit card tender. It doesn't work like that. You actually have to have your tenders, each individual credit card tender in place. The system will roll those up to what's called our recon bucket. So all four of those different credit card types will roll up to credit cards. That's an option in the point of sale. The next area that will have an accounting code will be your vendor, your accounts payable. So your account code goes right here. This is not to be confused with the account number field. That is going to be your account number with your vendor. The account code field, that is what's used for your exports. There's also a do not export checkbox here. This is an option for vendors. If it is checked and that is saved, that means that whenever you export your accounting report, this vendor and its invoices will not be included. So if you have certain vendors that don't need to be included, make sure you have that checkbox checked. All right, that covers the maintenance tab of accounting codes. The next area we're going to look at is going to be the items. Now, items, of course, are going to pull their accounting codes from the department. However, If you have an item in a department that it doesn't need to use that department's accounting code, it has its own accounting codes, maybe for like store use items, you can go to the price book. We'll look at an item, and under the additional info tab, there is a field here, your sales account, inventory asset account, and your cost goods account. Now, if these are blank, whenever this item is sold, it's going to, by default, go to the whatever the department accounting codes are. However, if there's fields here, and these have text in them, this means that it won't use the department accounting codes. It's going to use the item accounting codes here. This will supersede what the department actually has. So that's just an extra option we have in place to where if you have certain items in those departments and they don't need to use those codes, you can override that without having to manually do that. Okay. Next area will be buy downs. If you use buy downs, you will of course need to have an account code on those buy downs. So there is an account number field. This is that field you would utilize. You input your account number field, and that will then put that buy down on the correct area of the accounting report with this correct accounting code. Okay, so to get to the accounting exports, we will choose the reports tab. And there's an accounting exports tab up here. Now, if you don't have this tab and you wish to utilize it, all you have to do is contact our support department. We'd be happy to show you what to do and enable that for you. By default, it's not enabled. There's going to be 4 formats here. There's the Richer Masters format, the BusinessWorks format, QuickBooks format, and the Great Plains format. We're really going to be focusing on the QuickBooks format because that's the most common one that I've seen. So you have, and these all kind of have similar parameters. Your start date, your stop date. That's going to be what data are you pulling for that accounting export. Now, one thing to take into note, your sales is going to be based on your Z, your shift. So, for example, if I have this time frame from 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m., you would think it's all inclusive for that day. But let's say that I have a store that the store in question that we're trying to export for closes at, say, 1 a.m. If I did the export the way it is now, their sales technically is going to be from 9:14 to 9:15 at, say, 1:15 a.m. If I had it from 9:14 at 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m., it would be incorrect. It wouldn't balance because then, of course, in accounting, you want everything has to balance. You have your ins and your outs, your offsets. So to account for those Z's being after midnight, you would just simply change the date to one day after, put in, say the store closes at 1, you want to make sure you get their Z. They had a customer in late, maybe 1:30 a.m. This would then include that Z at 1:15 a.m. on the 15th, and then that's going to have your full day's worth of sales data for that accounting export. The export path, this is another common thing. This is where you want that account file to be spit out. So you can, of course, put this wherever you want, on the desktop, documents folder. By default, it's going to be in the FasTracks folder under the accounting exports folder. We can see that if I go to my accounting exports here. Then you have your checkboxes. Do I want to export invoices? Do I want to export my sales? And do I want to split my tenders into individual lines? Now, QuickBooks has this hyperlink here for other accounting codes, manage account codes. And there's going to be a lot of accounting codes here that's usable. You have your tax field name. Then the system supports up to 8 different tax rates. So if you have up to 8 tax rates for whatever reason, you can assign each tax rate an accounting code. In the scenario today, we only have 2 tax rates, city and state. So I've got account codes for those. You have your accounts payable name, your invoice account name. If you utilize pay-ins and payouts, you have your pay-in account code and your payout account code, and they're offset because they have to balance. So you have an offset code that will have that offset line on the accounting file. If you utilize mobile coupons and those have a specific accounting code, you can input that here. If you utilize loyalty coupons, like for the enhanced loyalty, you can put your accounting code for there. Freight account code, this is going to be whenever you're building an invoice and you have a surcharge like a delivery fee or freight code, you can input that value here. Say it's $15. That's what's going to show up whenever you have that freight code. That's where that, basically it's going to be our code for that. Buy down's account code, if there's one single code for every buy down, then you don't have to input that code on the buy down itself. You can input that here. Now, if I input a code here, which I'll show you in a second, it's going to ask me, am I sure I want to do this? Then you have your offset code to balance those buy down values. When I save that, of course, there's no warning. But if I put a code here, it's going to let me know, hey, are you sure you want to do this? I'm just going to choose no and delete that out. Okay, so that covers those account codes. Then there's one other file that you want to pay attention to for QuickBooks, and that is the FasTrax Accounting Export I-9. Now, that can be found in the FasTracks folder. So generally, it's going to be installed in your C drive, FastTracks, and then there's an account export I-9, FasTracks Accounting Export I-9. I can open this file up, and then there's other account codes that I can input here. Some of these are shared, like the pay-in and payouts, mobile coupons, and freight. But there's a couple like reverse tenders if you want certain tenders to be reversed. If you want cash enters to deduct pay-ins and payouts, you can utilize that. Just pay attention to this file. This will have a couple different settings that isn't available on that hyperlink. So whenever we run that file, that's going to spit that accounting file out. I'm going to go back to my FasTracks folder. I'm going to go to that. We can see the file path is Accounting Exports. Then I have my sales file and my invoices file. Here's an example of what that sales file would look like. You, of course, have your tenders, your manufacturer coupons, your sales, tax rates, cost of goods, buy downs. I'm sure to an accountant this would look very familiar. Then you have your invoice line. And there's my invoices, what that would look like. And you can see here, there's a $15 fee that's not on the other one. That's going to be that freight charge. That's where my freight accounting code would go. So in this invoice, I have an example. I had that basically that freight code's being utilized, whereas on the other one, it's not. Okay, so that covers the QuickBooks side. It's a lot simpler once you actually see it in action. We always recommend whenever you're first doing your accounting exports to make a separate kind of like a dummy Play Store and import against that, just so if you're unsure of how to unimport something, to delete something that you imported in, it wouldn't mess up your true accounting file. Now, we have a lot of customers that actually utilize, they build their own formats, and they use it in Excel. They basically export certain reports, like say our department sales report. We'll do today. They'll build it against Excel. And to do that, you just simply go to the Export Report button up here. We're going to choose the Excel data only format. We'll choose example department sales, and we're going to just dump that in our accounting exports file folder. There's that option. And then I can utilize Excel here and build whatever I need. This is going to basically have that report we just looked at, but just the data. So I can basically export several reports, put them in different sheets, and then use Excel formulas to basically make a specific file format that I want to do in Excel. So I can basically just simply utilize certain fields like the discounts or department sales, or I could do the sales tax report and do the taxes, and just utilize those Excel functions to build whatever format I want, and then save as, and then I can save it as a text file, a CSV file, Excel file, whatever software you're using, you can save it as that format that's friendly. So we're going to close that. Okay, so this is a rather short one because there's not as much to this as other webinars, but this covers the accounting side. QuickBooks, it's a lot more, it sounds a lot more difficult than it actually is once you put those accounting codes in place. Like I said, it's fairly straightforward. Just come in here, choose what you want to export, where you need it to go, hit the save button, the run report button, and that will spit up that file. Just pay very close attention to your date range. You want to make sure you include the shifts disease in that time frame. I hope everybody's learned something today and picked up some good information. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. Thank you for coming to this webinar, and I look forward to speaking with you next week. Hope everybody has a great weekend, great week. Thank you.